She was traded to a Lakota for a horse. But he promised her love, not chains. Alara stood on the edge of her family's ranch, the twin sons of Red Mesa casting long shadows across the dry, dusty plains. She had always loved this land, the way the wind moved through the alien grass and how the mountains glowed faintly in the distance. But today, something in the air felt wrong. There was tension, a kind that she could not shake. Her father, normally calm and measured, paced near the barn, speaking in low tones with a man Alara had never seen before. The man was tall and strong, his skin dark and eyes sharp. He carried himself with quiet power. Alara could tell he was not a simple trader from the stories she had heard in town. He was Lakota, and he was here for her. The thought made her stomach twist. She had heard whispers of families trading children, of deals made to settle debts or gain rare goods, but she had never imagined it would happen to her. "Alara," her father said, his voice stiff. "This is Ta. He has come for you." Alara's heart stopped. "For me," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. "Yes," her father said, avoiding her eyes. "It is for the horse, you understand. The agreement is final." Her hands trembled. A horse, a rare, genetically enhanced horse. That was worth more than anything she had ever known, but her life was not a thing to be traded, not her freedom, not her choices. Ta stepped forward, his movements calm, deliberate. "I mean no harm," he said, his voice deep and even. "I have come to offer you safety, respect, and choice. Nothing more. You are not a prisoner." Alara's anger flared. "Choice," she repeated. "How can I have choice when my father sells me like a thing?" Ta did not answer right away. He only nodded slightly, as if acknowledging her pain. The air was heavy with dust and heat, the silence stretching between them. Alara wanted to turn and run, but she knew there was nowhere to hide. The plains stretched for miles, and escape was impossible. Her father spoke again. "The horse is rare, Alara. It can change our fortunes. I had no choice." Alara's eyes filled with tears. She had trusted him, had always believed he would protect her, and now she felt betrayed. She wanted to scream, to demand that he stop, but the words stuck in her throat. She looked at Ta again. His face showed no judgment, no glee at her suffering. There was only calm, patient understanding. "Come with me," he said softly. "We will leave now. You will have food, shelter, and safety. You can speak freely, and your choices matter. I promise this." Alara hesitated. The promise sounded too simple, too quiet to matter in this world of harsh deals and dangerous people. But there was something in his eyes that made her pause, a kind of honesty she had never seen in anyone else. Finally, with a heavy heart, she nodded. She took one last look at her home, the red dust swirling around the wooden fences and the mountains glowing under the twin suns. Then she stepped forward. The journey began with silence. Ta led her to his transport, a sleek hovercraft with sturdy wheels and glowing panels. The craft hummed softly as it rose above the plains, and Alara could see the vastness of the frontier below. She had never felt so small, so exposed, and yet strangely free. The wind rushed past, and the alien grass waved beneath them like a golden sea. "Where are we going?" she finally asked, her voice breaking the quiet. "To my camp," Ta replied. "It is a place of safety. You will learn our ways and meet my people. You will have freedom here." Alara wanted to believe him, but trust did not come easily. She had grown up in a world of rigid rules and expectations, where a girl's life was often seen as a currency. She wanted to hate him, wanted to fight against the idea of this new life, but the emptiness in the plains below made her pause. Maybe, just maybe, there was something better waiting. The first night was strange. The hovercraft landed near a cluster of tents and wooden structures, built with a mixture of traditional design and futuristic materials. Soft lights glowed from panels set in the walls, and the smell of cooked food and burning wood filled the air. Alara's eyes widened. This was not a prison. This was home, at least for now. Children and adults alike moved about with purpose, speaking in soft tones. Some wore traditional clothing, others had clothing enhanced with glowing patterns that seemed to shift in color. They greeted Ta with respect, and he responded with nods and quiet words. Alara felt a pang of jealousy. These people had a world she could not yet touch. One of the women approached her, smiling gently. "Welcome," she said. "You are safe here. Come rest, eat. We will speak soon." Alara nodded, too tired and too wary to speak. She followed the woman to a small tent where a bed of soft blankets awaited. For the first time in hours, she felt her body relax slightly. Ta stayed outside, near the glow of the camp, watching over her. He did not invade her space or force conversation. His respect for her boundaries was clear, and though she did not trust him fully yet, she could not deny that his actions were kind. As she lay on the blankets, her mind raced. Would her family come after her? Could she survive in this alien frontier? And what did it mean that this Lakota man, strong and silent, promised her freedom and respect when so many others had treated her like a thing to be traded? The next day, she learned more. Ta showed her the camp, introducing her to people who taught her survival skills. How to ride the enhanced horses, how to handle tools that seemed part traditional, part futuristic, and how to navigate the glowing plains and rivers that twisted unnaturally across the land. At first, Alara resisted. She refused to ride the horses, refused to touch the tools, refusing to accept this life. But she could not deny her fascination. The horses were magnificent, their bodies sleek and strong, muscles rippling even under the strange light of Red Mesa. Their eyes were bright, intelligent, aware. Riding one required trust, and Alara found herself staring into those eyes and wondering if she could learn. Ta watched her silently, offering guidance but never pressure. Slowly, she mounted one of the horses, trembling as it shifted beneath her. The horse's response was immediate, strong, gentle, and attuned. Alara felt a spark of exhilaration as they moved together across the plains, the wind whipping past her face. She laughed aloud, a sound she had not made in months. That evening, as the twin suns set, casting the plains in a mix of gold and violet, Alara sat beside Ta by the campfire. They spoke quietly, sharing stories of their pasts. She told him about her family, her fears, and her dreams. He told her about his people, the balance between tradition and technology, and the freedom they sought in this frontier world. Alara began to see him differently. He was not a captor or a traitor seeking advantage. He was a man of honor, strength, and patience. And though she did not yet trust him fully, a seed of hope grew within her, a hope that life could be more than she had ever imagined, and that perhaps she could find respect, freedom, and even love in this strange, beautiful frontier. As night fell, she watched the stars appear in the alien sky, larger and brighter than any she had seen on Earth. The plains were quiet now, save for the soft hum of the camp and the distant calls of creatures she could not name. She felt small and unprepared, but also alive in a way she had never known. For the first time, Alara wondered if this trade for a horse could lead to something far greater. Not chains, not fear, but freedom, adventure, and the chance to choose her own path. And somewhere deep inside, she felt a spark of trust in the Lakota man who had promised her nothing but respect and care. The frontier stretched before her, vast and unknown. Alara did not know what lay ahead, but she knew she would face it. And maybe, just maybe, she would find a life beyond the one her family had chosen for her. Alara woke before sunrise. The plains of Red Mesa stretched endlessly before her, bathed in soft violet and gold light. She could hear the faint hum of the camp, the quiet steps of Ta as he moved among the tents. He had promised her freedom, and so far he had kept it. Not a single word of command, not a single gesture of force. She stepped outside and felt the alien grass brush against her hands. The air smelled faintly of smoke and distant flowers, a scent that was both strange and comforting. She wanted to run to escape from this life that had been forced upon her, yet a curiosity she could not explain drew her forward. Ta approached quietly, carrying a small pack. "Today," he said softly, "you will learn to ride with confidence. You have seen the plains from the hovercraft, but now you will move across them on your own." Alara's stomach tightened. She had ridden horses before on Earth, but never like this. These horses were different. They were faster, stronger, and somehow aware. Their muscles rippled beneath their sleek coats, their eyes intelligent, almost human in their understanding. "You will not fall," Ta said, sensing her hesitation. "The horse will respond to you if you listen. Trust yourself and trust them." Alara took a deep breath. She stepped closer to the horse, running her hands along its neck. The horse shifted slightly, sniffing her hands, then nudged her gently. A spark of courage lit inside her. Slowly she mounted. Her heart pounded, but she remembered Ta's words. She listened to the rhythm of the horse's breathing, the gentle movements beneath her, and for the first time she felt a connection that was not forced. They moved together across the plains. At first her movements were clumsy, but the horse adjusted to her. She laughed aloud, the sound carried by the morning wind. The plains seemed to stretch forever, alien rocks floating in the distance and streams reflecting light in impossible colors. She felt alive, more alive than she had in her whole life. After hours of practice, Ta led her to a small ridge overlooking the plains. From here, the view was breathtaking. Distant mountains glowed under the twin suns, and strange creatures moved in the tall grass, their shapes casting long shadows. "You are learning quickly," Ta said. "It is not only the body that must learn, the mind must be aware of the land, the wind, and the life that surrounds you." Alara nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. She could feel it, the pulse of this land, the rhythm of life here. She had been raised to fear the unknown, yet now, standing with Ta beside her, she felt it was beautiful, not threatening. That night the camp gathered around the fire. Alara sat quietly, listening to stories told in simple tones. Stories of survival, of courage, of people who had built a life on this frontier despite hardships and alien dangers. Ta spoke of his ancestors, of how they balanced tradition with the new technology of their world. The camp members listened with respect, nodding at his words. Alara's heart softened. She began to see him not as a captor, but as a teacher, a guide, and perhaps something more. His promise of respect and freedom was not empty. Here, she could choose her path, learn skills, and even discover parts of herself she had never known. The following days were filled with lessons and exploration. Ta taught her how to navigate the glowing rivers that twisted like ribbons across the plains. He showed her how to track alien wildlife, how to read subtle signs in the land that warned of storms or predators. Each lesson was challenging, but Alara began to feel capable. She could survive here and perhaps even thrive. One morning, as they rode together through a valley, they spotted movement in the distance. A small group of travelers approached, their clothes dusty, their expressions wary. Ta slowed the horse. "They are settlers," he said. "We must be cautious." Alara's heart raced. She had imagined dangers, but the reality was more frightening. These settlers could be hostile. Ta guided her behind a ridge, letting her observe quietly. The settlers spoke in harsh tones, pointing toward the camp. They were looking for someone or something. "You must stay calm," Ta whispered. "Do not act hastily. Watch and learn." Alara held her breath, hidden behind rocks, as Ta and his people moved silently, preparing the camp for potential conflict. She realized that trust here was not blind obedience, but careful awareness and thoughtful action. She wanted to be part of this, to stand beside Ta not as a visitor, but as someone capable and strong. By evening, the settlers had passed. The camp returned to its quiet rhythm, but Alara's mind was alive with thoughts. Danger was real here, but so was opportunity. She felt a strange pride in her own courage, and even more in Ta's steady presence. He had not demanded anything from her, yet she had learned more about bravery and respect in these few days than she had in her entire life. One evening, under the glow of the twin moons, Ta took Alara to a hill overlooking the camp. "You are learning," he said, "but the frontier is not only about skills, it is about heart. You must trust yourself and trust others who earn it." Alara looked at him, seeing the strength and quiet wisdom in his face. She wanted to ask questions, to speak of fear and hope, but the words did not come. Instead, she nodded. She felt a shift inside her, a slow recognition that her life was changing. The bitterness of being traded for a horse had not disappeared, but a seed of possibility had taken root. Days passed, each filled with practice, small adventures, and growing bonds. Alara discovered that the horses were not only strong and intelligent, but also sensitive to the rider's emotions. She learned to calm herself before each ride, to breathe with the horse, to move as one. The connection thrilled her, and for the first time she felt free in a way that was entirely her own choice. She also learned about the Lakota people's harmony with technology. Machines in the camp were tools, not masters. Solar panels glowed faintly, water systems hummed silently, and protective barriers were strong but unobtrusive. The camp was a living balance of old and new, tradition and innovation. Alara marveled at the harmony, realizing that life here was far more than she had imagined. One afternoon, while exploring the edge of a glowing river, Alara slipped on a moss-covered rock and fell toward the water. Instinctively, she called out, and the horse she had been riding nudged her back onto dry ground. Ta appeared moments later, concern etched on his face. "You must be careful," he said gently. "The frontier is beautiful, but it does not forgive carelessness." Alara laughed nervously, brushing dust from her clothes. "I am learning," she said. Slowly, Ta smiled faintly. "Good learning is not only about skill. It is about understanding life and your place in it." Alara realized then that he had been teaching her more than survival. He was teaching her confidence, independence, and trust. She had begun to respect him, not just for his strength and wisdom, but for the freedom he gave her to choose her own path. At night, Alara would often lie awake, listening to the distant hum of the camp and the quiet call of alien creatures in the darkness. She thought of her family, of the deal that had brought her here, and of the strange turn her life had taken. Anger and sadness still lingered, but they were now tempered with curiosity and a growing sense of belonging. She wondered what the future held. Would her family come for her? Would she ever return? The questions were heavy, but she no longer felt powerless. She was learning, growing, and discovering courage she had not known she possessed. Most importantly, she was beginning to understand something she had never known before, that respect and care could exist in a harsh world, and that perhaps love could too. Tah's promise had not been empty. Here in the alien plains of Red Mesa, she could feel it, alive and real. Alara stood again at the edge of the camp the next morning, watching the sunrise paint the horizon with colors she could not name. The plains seemed endless, full of danger, adventure, and life. She felt the wind on her face, smelled the grass and soil, and knew that she was part of something larger than herself. Her heart was still cautious, still wary, but a spark of hope burned brightly. She was no longer a girl traded for a horse. She was Alara, alive, learning, and discovering a world full of possibilities. And she was beginning to trust the Lakota man who had promised her nothing but respect, freedom, and care. For the first time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, the frontier held not only challenge and danger, but a life worth choosing. The wind had picked up by mid-morning, carrying the scent of dust and distant rain across the plains of Red Mesa. Alara rode alongside Tah, feeling more confident now than she had just days before. The horses beneath them moved as one with their riders, muscles strong, senses sharp. The plains stretched endlessly, dotted with alien plants that glowed faintly, casting soft light in the rising sun. Alara's thoughts were restless. She had grown accustomed to the quiet rhythm of the camp, to the lessons and the strange harmony of life among the Lakota people. Yet something unsettled her. News had come from the edge of the plains. A small band of settlers had been asking questions about the camp. People had seen strange lights, heard rumors of the girl who had been traded. Her family, perhaps, or bounty hunters eager for profit might be coming. Tah noticed her tension. "You worry," he said quietly. "The frontier tests us, but we must meet challenges with clarity, not fear." "I know," Alara replied, her voice tight. "But I don't want to go back." He looked at her, eyes steady and calm. "You will choose your path, that is your right. Nothing is forced here, remember that." Alara nodded, but inside her heart the old fears clashed with her growing trust. She had begun to see Tah not as a stranger, but as someone she could rely on. He had never treated her like property, never demanded obedience. Yet the shadows of her past and the looming threat of her family made her hesitate. The day passed with training and exploration. Tah guided her through narrow canyons where strange creatures moved silently among the rocks. They practiced tracking, reading the land for signs of movement, and anticipating danger before it arrived. Each lesson was a test, and Alara met it with determination. She could feel herself changing. She was no longer the frightened girl who had arrived in the hovercraft. She was learning to think, act, and survive like a frontier rider. As they returned to the camp, the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the plains in gold and violet. A scout approached, riding swiftly from the edge of the plains. His face was tense and his words quick. "There are outsiders near the ridge," he said. "They are armed, they ask for the girl." Alara's heart froze. She had hoped that distance and the alien plains would protect her, but the threat had found them. Tah did not panic. Instead, he nodded to the scout. "Bring them here, quietly, we will assess them." Alara felt a cold knot of fear, but Tah placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You are ready for what comes," he said. His confidence steadied her, even as the reality of the threat pressed in. By nightfall, the outsiders had arrived at the edge of the camp. They were cautious, speaking in low tones, their eyes scanning the camp and its people. Alara's family was not here yet, but these strangers had the same intent, to take her back, to reclaim what they saw as theirs. Tah stepped forward to meet them. "You seek someone," he said. "But this camp is not for stealing, nor is it for threats. Speak your purpose clearly." The leader, a tall man with a hard face, sneered. "We are here for the girl. She belongs to her family." Alara felt a rush of anger. Belongs? Was she ever truly theirs? She took a step forward, her voice firm. "I am not yours to take," she said. "I choose where I live, who I trust, and who I ride with." The man hesitated, caught off guard by her words. Ta moved slightly in front of her, not as a shield, but as a steady presence. "She has chosen," he said. "That is final." Tension crackled in the air. The outsiders were armed with strange rifles that glowed faintly, their barrels humming with energy. The camp itself was quiet, the people watching silently, prepared for whatever might happen. Alara felt fear, but also a strange calm. She had learned to trust herself, to trust her instincts. She was not helpless. The standoff lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours. Finally, the leader spoke. "We do not wish to fight, yet we will if you resist. The girl is valuable, and so are the rewards for returning her." Ta's eyes narrowed. "Then you leave, and you do not return. Harm none here, and you may go." The leader hesitated, calculating. He looked at Alara, then at Ta, and finally nodded. "We will leave for now," he said, retreating into the night. Alara's body shook with relief and adrenaline. She had faced danger and survived. She had spoken her truth, and it had been heard. Ta's hand on her shoulder was steady and warm. "You were brave," he said. "This is only the beginning. The frontier tests those who ride it. You are ready." That night, Alara could not sleep. She walked to the edge of the camp, staring at the alien plains bathed in moonlight. Strange creatures moved in the distance, their eyes glowing softly. The wind carried distant sounds, whispers of a world both beautiful and dangerous. She realized that this was the first time she had felt truly alive. Ta joined her, walking silently beside her. "You think of the future," he said, "of what might come. But remember, it is your choices that shape it, not the fears of others." Alara looked at him, seeing the quiet wisdom in his face. I don't want to go back to them," she admitted. "Not now, not ever, but I still feel the pull, the expectations of my family." "It is hard to let go," Ta nodded. "You honor your past, yet you choose your present. That is not weakness, it is strength. The frontier belongs to those who act with both courage and clarity." Alara felt a shift inside her. She realized that her anger at her family, her fear, and her confusion were natural, but they did not define her. She could forge a new life here, with choices of her own. The feeling was liberating, terrifying, and exhilarating all at once. Over the next days, the camp returned to its quiet rhythm, but the tension lingered in Alara's mind. She practiced riding the horses across dangerous terrain, tracking small alien creatures, and learning to anticipate threats before they arrived. Ta guided her with patience, never forcing, never judging. She began to see the depth of his promise. Freedom, respect, and trust were more powerful than chains or fear. One afternoon, as they rode near a floating canyon, Alara spotted movement below. A group of strange riders, faster than ordinary horses, moved quickly across the terrain. They were observing the camp, silent but deliberate. Alara's heart raced. "They are scouts," Ta said quietly. "We must remain calm, observe them, but do not act hastily." Alara felt a mix of fear and excitement. The danger was real, but she had learned that courage was not the absence of fear. It was acting despite it. Together, she and Ta watched the scouts, understanding their patterns, predicting their movements. The skills she had learned in recent days gave her confidence she never knew she could have. That night, as the twin moons rose high, Alara reflected on her journey. She had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty, yet she had survived. She had learned to trust herself and others, and she had begun to understand that life could be more than what her family had dictated. Ta sat beside her by the fire. "You have grown," he said, "not only in skill, but in spirit. The frontier tests all who ride it, and you are learning its ways." Alara looked into the flames, seeing her reflection in the dancing light. "I am learning," she said softly. "I am beginning to understand who I am." He nodded. "And that understanding will guide you, even when the plains grow dangerous and the choices are difficult." Alara smiled faintly, feeling the weight of her past, but also the promise of her future. She was no longer the girl traded for a horse. She was a frontier rider, learning the ways of the plains, the rhythms of the land, and the truths of trust and courage. The alien plains of Red Mesa stretched endlessly before her, glowing softly under the moons. Danger was never far, and challenges would come, but Alara felt ready. With Ta by her side, she knew she could face whatever the frontier held. And in her heart, a quiet hope began to grow, a hope that she could find freedom, belonging, and perhaps love, in this new world she had chosen. The wind on Red Mesa was sharp and cold that morning, carrying the scent of dust and smoke from distant fires. Alara stood atop a small ridge, her horse shifting beneath her as she surveyed the plains. She could see movement far in the distance, settlers, armed and purposeful, moving toward the camp. Their intentions were clear. They wanted her, but this time there would be no calm negotiation. Beside her, Ta sat tall and steady, his eyes scanning the horizon. "They are determined," he said quietly. "We must prepare, but remember, we defend, not attack. Protect the camp and its people and keep your mind clear." Alara felt her heart pounding. The days of practice, of learning the ways of the frontier, had led to this moment. She was no longer a frightened girl traded for a horse. She had skills, courage, and allies. Yet the weight of choice pressed upon her. She could not ignore her past entirely, but she could decide her future. The camp stirred below them, Lakota riders moving with precision, setting up protective barriers and scouting positions. Machines hummed softly, blending tradition with technology, small energy shields, silent alarms, and traps that could immobilize intruders without causing harm. The camp was ready. Alara's pulse quickened, not with fear but with determination. The settlers reached the edge of the camp, their glowing rifles scanning for targets. Their leader, the same man from before, stepped forward, sneering. "She is ours. Return her or face the consequences." Alara took a deep breath and looked at Ta. "I choose to stay," she said, her voice clear. "I am not theirs, I am not property." Ta gave a slight nod. "Then we protect you," he said. The standoff began. The settlers moved cautiously, but the camp was ready. Energy shields flared as the first shots of light bounced harmlessly, warning them away. Horses stamped nervously, their riders guiding them calmly through the chaos. Alara felt her fear turn into focus. She was part of this now. She moved with the riders, signaling, observing, ready to act. The settlers tried to flank the camp, thinking they could catch the defenders off guard. But Ta and Alara anticipated their moves. She guided a group of younger riders through a narrow canyon, using the terrain to their advantage. The plains were her ally now, and the horses moved as extensions of herself. She felt exhilarated, alive in a way she had never known. One of the settlers attempted to reach her position, but a rope trap dropped silently, entangling his horse and sending him stumbling without harm. Alara watched, her pulse steady. She realized that courage was not about recklessness. It was about awareness, skill, and timing. She could act and she could protect without causing unnecessary harm. Ta confronted the leader directly, moving with calm confidence. "Leave now," he said. "Harm none, or you will face the consequences of your choices." The leader hesitated, realizing that this was not a simple fight. The camp was well prepared, the defenders skilled and focused. He glared at Alara as if she alone held the key to his frustration. "You think you can choose?" he shouted. "You belong to us." Alara met his gaze. "I belong to myself," she said, "and to the people who respect me. I choose my life, and it is here with Ta and the camp." Her words carried across the plains, strong and unwavering. The leader's face tightened, and for a moment the wind seemed to still. Then he turned, signaling his men to retreat. They disappeared into the distance, the hum of their machines fading, leaving only the soft sounds of the plains and the camp's quiet celebrations. Alara felt a rush of relief and pride. She had spoken her truth, and it had been heard. She had acted, protected herself, and defended those who had given her trust and freedom. Ta joined her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "You have done well," he said. "Your courage and choice have shaped this day." For the first time, Alara allowed herself to relax fully. The tension that had held her for weeks began to dissolve. She looked at the camp below, alive with movement, glowing lights, and quiet triumph. She realized that this was more than safety. It was a community, a family built on respect, trust, and freedom. The days that followed were filled with rebuilding and celebration. The camp repaired minor damages, shared meals under the twin suns, and held quiet ceremonies honoring the bravery of the riders. Alara participated fully, learning not only skills, but also the values that guided this people. She felt a sense of belonging she had never known before, a warmth that contrasted sharply with the fear and anger she had felt at her family's betrayal. One evening, under the glow of the moons, Ta took Alara to a high ridge overlooking the plains. The wind carried the scent of distant flowers and the soft hum of the energy panels in the camp. The horizon glowed in colors she had never seen before, a mix of violet, gold, and faint green light from the alien vegetation. "You have changed," Ta said quietly. "Not only in skill but in heart. You have chosen and your choice is strong." Alara looked at him, feeling a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and something deeper. "I could not have done this without you," she said. "You promised respect and freedom and you kept it. You never forced me, never treated me like I was a thing to own. You taught me courage." Ta's eyes softened. "You had it all along," he said. "I only guided you to see it for yourself." Alara felt a warmth in her chest, a feeling that went beyond trust. She realized that this frontier, harsh and dangerous as it was, had given her something she had never known: choice, belonging, and the chance to love and be loved. As night fell, they rode together across the plains, the horses moving with a quiet grace. The glowing rivers reflected the light of the moons, and the alien grass swayed in the wind. For the first time, Alara felt completely free, moving not as someone taken or traded, but as someone who had chosen her own path. She looked at Ta, riding beside her, and smiled. "I think I am ready," she said softly. "Ready for whatever comes next," he nodded. "The frontier will always challenge us, but you are ready, and you are not alone." Alara felt a quiet thrill of anticipation. She knew dangers would come again. This was the frontier after all, but she no longer felt powerless. She had skills, allies, and a place where she belonged. She had made her choice, and it had been respected. She had found her freedom. As the days passed, life in the camp continued. Alara learned more about the balance between tradition and technology, about the care that the Lakota people showed toward each other and their land. She practiced riding at dawn, tracking at dusk, and helping others with tasks that required both strength and patience. Each day strengthened her body, her mind, and her sense of self. She also began to understand the depth of Ta's promise. Love was not possession, it was respect, care, and shared courage. He had given her freedom, and she had chosen to stay, not because she was forced, but because she wanted to. And in that choice, she felt a connection deeper than anything she had imagined. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Alara and Ta sat atop a ridge, watching the plains stretch endlessly before them. The air was cool, the scent of alien flowers strong and sweet. She leaned slightly toward him, feeling the bond that had grown over days of shared danger, learning, and quiet moments. "I am glad I came," she said softly. "Even though I was traded, I found something better. A life I chose, people who care, and you." Ta looked at her, a quiet smile touching his lips. "And I am glad you chose to stay," he said. "That choice is yours, and it is strong. Together we face the frontier as equals." Alara felt a sense of peace she had never known. The fear of being traded, of being controlled, of losing herself was gone. In its place was courage, respect, and the knowledge that her life was hers to live. The frontier was vast, full of challenges and adventure, but she was ready. She mounted her horse beside Ta, feeling the familiar strength of the animal beneath her. The plains stretched endlessly, glowing softly under the moons. For the first time, she felt completely free, not owned, not traded, not fearful, but alive, capable, and loved. Together they rode into the horizon, side by side, a symbol of trust, courage, and choice. The wind carried the promise of new adventures, and the plains of Red Mesa shimmered under twin moons, a land of freedom and possibility. Alara knew that life would not always be easy. Challenges would come and dangers would test them. But she also knew that she had chosen her path, and that she had found someone who honored her freedom and shared her courage. The frontier was wide, the plains endless, and the future unknown. But for the first time, Alara felt ready to face it, all of it, with strength, skill, and love. And under the twin moons on the glowing plains of Red Mesa, she rode forward, free at last.